Humdrummety, humdrummety, humdrummety.
Hey, listener, and welcome back. Many of us believe we have the material for writing at least one book, but according to my guest today, the writing is the easy part. At the age of 60, Ron Kinscherf decided to quit his job without having a master plan. Fortunately, family life led him to a new passion as a children's author, despite not knowing what it takes to self-publish a series of books. Now, with 10 books to his name, Ron is going to share his wisdom and inspiration with us. Tune in to find out about leaving a big L versus little L legacy. Okay, let's get into this page-turner of an interview. Hi, Ron, and thanks for coming on Humdrummety to share your story with us today.
Not a problem. Going to enjoy it. Looking forward to it.
Excellent. Now, you became a children's author at the age of 60.
Yes, sir.
Tell me, how did you get there?
Well, I have grandchildren. I have 5 grandchildren. While that was going on, I had a big boy job. I was a corporate sales, providing business solutions from the IT world, storage, servers, things along those lines. At the age of 60, I was miserable. I was stressed out, was tired of the territory reviews, the sales quotas, all that made up stuff that puts a little bit extra pressure on you to make money for management and stuff along those lines, and myself, obviously. So at dinner one night, my wife were just sitting there, and I just told her about my day and the stuff just the regular stuff that goes on in that type of world. And she was, "Ron, just quit." I'm like, "Excuse me?" She goes, "Just quit. We'll figure it out." So put in my 2 weeks, had no game plan, didn't have a job lined up or anything. So again, as I mentioned, parallel to all that, their grandkids coming around, and I was making up stories with them all the time. When I would put them down for rests/naps, I had one in particular that would ask me to make up a story, and I would ask him about what, and he'd look around the room we were in and just pick some random thing, like a medicine bottle or a ceiling fan or whatever else he would see in that room. One time it was giraffes, and so I would make up the story on the spot, and he'd go to sleep. One of the suggestions I got for my life after that big boy job was to write kids books, and I really didn't take it seriously because wasn't on my bingo card. Nothing I thought I would ever do was create content like that. But then I got an idea. One evening I was barbecuing outside, and my grandson was stomping on anthills, and I'm just watching him go, just thinking, those ants probably have no idea what's going on. They're just going to rebuild that. That's what they do. And so I got an idea to write a story from the ants' point of view of the situation they were going through. Then I got another idea about what happens when it rains with ants. How do they handle that situation? And I just kept going. I kept writing, getting more ideas, and had some people write them. And they suggested they liked them, suggested I start publishing them. And in about 3.5 years, I had 11 self-published. And the last book, Adorable, has been picked up by Morgan James Publishing out of New York City. So it's been kind of a whirlwind from the age of 60 to now I'm 63 and a half of entering this crazy world of kids author, as being a kids author, this industry and the challenges it faces. But the interesting thing about this is how much I've learned about myself and how much fun I'm having. And I feel like I have found what I'm supposed to be on this earth to do, is to create content for kids. I've always felt there's something I should be doing. I think a lot of us have that feeling in their, in the back of their minds as they go through their daily lives. And I found it. I know this is what I'm supposed to be doing.
Yeah, and why I really wanted to have you on the show is I think many people dream of being an author, but never take the leap. They find it either too daunting, don't have the time. But I think, the idea of writing a book is perhaps one of the, most oft thought of ways to break out of daily humdrummety to find bigger meaning in your life. What is your advice on how people can take that dream and make it a reality?
Just in the writing world or anything?
Well, in the writing world, about becoming an author and the pitfalls and,
the pitfalls are you're going to go broke. I shouldn't say broke. That's a very strong word, but you can't go into it thinking you're going to make money on your first book because, especially if you want to be a kid's author and you can't draw, because you have to hire an illustrator. and that's not cheap. So you have to be ready for that challenge. And the hardest, most difficult challenge is the marketing aspect. How are you going to sell your books? I mean, you'll sell maybe 50 to 100 just to people that know you locally, right? But getting them into bookstores is not easy, because I thought you go into the bookstore and say, "Hey, I'm an author. Here's my book." It's that's not how it works. They generally order through other, just like grocery stores do or any other business. They order them from places that provide books, and so you have to have your books there and hope that they find them there in order to put them in their stores. Um, that's a very difficult process, because the one part about that too, I found out, is if they do order, let's say 10 of your books and they don't sell, they can send them back.
Hmm.
Do you know where they go? They go to
Uh,
me.
Back to you. Yeah.
Back to me. So I'm getting billed for the books that they didn't sell. So there's a lot of really weird things that I learned about this industry that didn't make sense to me. Was unlike anything I've ever experienced, that I've had to go through the trials and tribulations of over this path, because I had some people that help me out and all that, but those are kind of things you stumble upon that you didn't realize were going to happen, if that makes sense. But that marketing and selling the books to break even, especially if you're in the children's world, is very, very difficult. Outside the children's world, like if you're writing a novel, you still have to pay for cover art, editing, printing, all that type of stuff. So the writing part almost is the easy part. It is for me. The creating is the easy part for me. It's all that other stuff. I've never run a business. You should be here at our house when we do taxes with my wife, because she's an accountant. That doesn't go well generally. It's one of the worst of the 365 days of our of our married year. But my advice would be prepared. If you love it, do it. Be prepared also that it might not be any good. I mean, but it's worth a try. And if it makes you happy, do it.
So just back to you've written your first book.
Right.
Or you've written, you wrote up until you now found a publisher.
Mm-hmm.
Did you work with any other people? Like, I know, like, obviously when you get a publisher, you're getting a lot of other services that come along with it. But when it comes to the distribution and the marketing of the book, is there channels for that?
A lot of it you do on your own, but I got lucky, and I got lucky a number of times on this process, which made me feel like there's like a guardian angel behind me pushing these people into my direction. And one of them was, there's a gal in town here that runs like an author's co-op, and it's inexpensive. It's for people like me who are just getting into the industry, that provides services. For example, helping get the book formatted for Amazon, doing some marketing for you, just similar things like that. And there's other people within this group that, like we have a professional reviewer that's a part of this group. We have other people who you can bounce questions off. Like I got a podcast from another author that writes crime novels. So there's this community of authors that who have become my friends that, hey, you know what, I got a question about this. It's a legal question. I can go to this person because I know they've been through this before. So I've had that assistance throughout this process. But 85, 90% of this has had to be, it's me learning as I go along this process. And, when I did that first book, it was just kind of for fun. It's just like, I'm going to try it, see how it happens. Then I found out people really liked it. And then I really liked the process. So it's like, okay, let's do another one. And I did. And then I found out, you know what, in order for a kid's book to be successful, you really should have a series. So I go, okay, let's do the 5. And I was putting them out left and right. I've still got like 20 books in this laptop we're using today that are ready to go. So once you get to that point where, you know what, I'm going to really see if I could break even on this. I'm going to really see what can happen here. That's when you start investigating, finding publishers or an agent, things along those lines. But it's a catch-22 situation, because the publishers, just for a kid's story, they treat that the same as a novel. They just want your manuscript. They don't want your illustrations. They don't want any of that. They just want to read the 2 pages you have of the story. And then they want to have a lot of control over your illustrator and what the pictures look like and all that type of stuff. And my feeling is, how the heck do they know that? How do they know it's in my brain? I mean, those are just my words. How do they know it in my brain, how I want that scene to lay out or anything along those lines? And I had very specific ideas, which we could talk about a little bit, about how I wanted these books to look, because as a grandfather, I have read zillions of books about grandkids, and I know what I like and don't like. because I didn't have that time as a parent, because once I read to them, I was going to the next step, bath, supper, putting them down, that type of thing. And then I'm out. Oh my gosh, it's time for a beer. Let's rinse and repeat tomorrow. But as a grandfather, you take the kids to do all that. I just read them 3 books. So I know what I like and dislike. So I wanted to incorporate that into the books I was creating.
Right. So that's interesting. And there's 2 questions that come up for me on that. So first of all, it does sound like if you get involved with a publisher, you are losing a lot of the creative control. Now, that brings up the second question, which is you have an illustrator you've worked with, Holly Brogard.
Yes, Holly Brogard.
How did you first meet her? And how did that go over now that you have a publisher when you already had an established illustrator for your books?
So let me answer this second question first. Is they're a rare publisher that allow me to keep the IP. It's in my contract. So I own those characters. I own the IP. I can do whatever I want with those pages. Okay. So, and how I got that deal was, it was a person it was just one of those chain things, networking where 6 people, the Kevin Bacon thing, whatever.
6 Degrees of Bacon.
Yeah. So I sent them Adorable, the book, and I said, oh yeah, I want to read something. Okay, here's my last one. Here, I sent it to him. Just you read it. And he did. And 2 weeks later, I had a contract. And so they accepted the book as it was. And part of it is I get to keep my IP. So that's rare and it's awesome. And I don't know if I would have accepted a publishing deal without taking my illustrator along with me. So how I find Holly is basically a dating app for creative people. So I looked at some people locally here. It didn't find, it didn't work out that way. No reason other than it didn't work out. So I just Googled, how do I find an illustrator? And a website came up called Upworks. And it's for people like me looking for people like her. I post a project. Here's what I'm looking for. I'm a first-time author. I'm looking for somebody to get started with. This could lead to more books, more than one. And then people started applying. And then I interviewed a few people and we just hit it off. She was just getting started too. She was young. I could tell by interviewing her that she just had that joyful exuberance to create. And she had nieces and nephews. So I knew she was around kids a lot. And when you talk to somebody about a project and you just get a really good feeling that you're on the same page, and that's how it was. I pretty much knew it was her from the beginning. And she also had a part-time job at the time. So this wasn't her primary source of income. So we were in a very similar situation, and it worked out great. I mean, we've done 8 books together. We kind of think on the same plane now. She accepted. Well, I was paying her, so kind of, it's kind of funny. I'm paying her, so she kind of had to accept what I wanted to do. But I've heard stories where illustrators buck that trend, where they say, no, we're not going to do it that way. I've heard stories like that, but she agreed with how the books were laid out. She accepted the challenge, and she's excited to work on these projects because she just loves creating content for kids. She just has that place in her heart that is, she just loves creating content for kids. So yeah. I got a lot of this, I got very, very lucky.
Right. So there was some serendipity that happened for you in this.
Very good word. Yes. I call it kismet. Yeah.
So actually, let's go through that process then of when you first met Holly. So obviously, I assume you're not much of a drawer. You didn't have any sort of layouts that you had?
No, well, that's funny. And I don't have anything I could show you. But it's sometimes it's difficult to get what's in my brain verbally to somebody. So she go, Ron, just sketch it out. So now it's a joke where I would kind of sketch out what I was looking for. And then she go, oh, okay, now I know what you're after. Then she would draw it, especially the book covers. And so it's now got to be a joke and I know she does it just to laugh at what I'm drawing, but it still gives her an idea of the layout and everything. And when I go to talk to kids or present to kids, well, the first things I show them is one of my sketches, because I always get the question, so you draw the pictures, right, Ron, Mr. Ron, or whatever? I go, yeah, I do. And I show them a picture, and then they start laughing. And I go, so do you think I could sell some books? Anyway, so no, I do not. But what I tried to find looking for illustrators is somebody who is extremely agile in the different type of art they could create. Some people, I found that some are really good at cartoonish type, some are really good at this, but she is good around a bunch of broad spectrum of types of art. So I was looking for somebody like that, and so she could fit whatever kind of style I wanted to do. So that worked out great. And the funny thing is, I never met her until like 2 months ago. face to face. She's in Minnesota and I'm in Illinois, and it was COVID.
Oh, so it was all just an
All
online
Zoom.
working
Yeah, just like this. So
relationship.
we traded texts, and yeah, it was.
So when you first put your idea, and I'm sorry, I can't, what was the name of the app that you used for
Upworks.
Upworks?
Yeah.
Did you get other submissions
Oh,
back
yes.
beside? And so you felt though that what Holly was doing sort of brought what was in your mind to life.
Yes. Based on what she had already created that was in her portfolio, and just the chat. It's just, you get that feeling, and I'm sure everybody listening gets that feeling once in a while that you talk to somebody, okay, that's the person. And she was the person. And I really don't know how to explain it other than that, and her, um, you just got to know. I mean, she had pictures of Disney things in the background as we were talking, like, and what her favorite music, she was dressed in a Hogwarts shirt, or, one of those type of things. So you just knew she was a child at heart, and it just clicked.
Talking about inspiration, you obviously gain a lot of inspiration from your grandchildren.
Yes.
Do they inspire many of your stories and you take it
Yes.
from there?
Yeah, they do. And I have a limitless amount. People go, how do you come up with your ideas? I have limitless potential because they're in my house multiple times a week, and Adorable is a perfect example. This one here is my son had his third child, and the second child, middle child, got extremely jealous because mommy was giving the attention to the baby. I think every family's gone through that. So I got the idea for Adorable that the colony is run by a queen, and she has a son, Prince Andrew, who's the primary character in a lot of the stories. So I thought it'd be kind of interesting if Prince Andrew would come home one day and the queen had a baby. That happens. He gets extremely jealous, doesn't think mom has enough love for everybody, and runs away. That's the basis of the story.
Mm-hmm.
As he's flying away, he runs into the smartest creature in the neighborhood, of course, is the owl. And the owl asks him what's going on. And he spills his guts. And basically the owl tells him, Prince Andrew, your mom has enough love for everybody, the colony, you, your daughter, your sister. Mom's never run out of love. So Prince Andrew sits there and thinks, and then flies home, and everything turns out okay. But that's one of the stories that was definitely inspired by my grandchildren. Now, there's other stories that are inspired just by what I've gone through in my life. And that's part of the message. It's like my eyes have been open to a whole new vision of my childhood to a degree. When I was writing these stories, I got like 5 stories in, nothing was published yet. And I had friends that were reading them. And one of my friends said, Ron, it's so cool that you have such a strong matriarch running your ant colony. And I started thinking, and it's like, my dad died when I was 5.
Uh-huh.
That's what I lived. And I had no idea that's what I was writing. I was writing about a queen running a colony. A king never entered my mind. Never entered my mind. And there's this immature prince that was getting in trouble all the time. That was the next in command. That's the basis, kind of. There's other ants that are made characters in this thing as we move along, but that was the basis of the beginning of the story. And then another aspect of it, there's this whole community of ants that helped the colony be successful. And that's what my neighborhood was, because this was back in the late 60s. I had 5 brothers and sisters, and another family lost their patriarch. And so there were like 4 families in this neighborhood that helped each other out. We watched each other's kids. We had kids spend time with each other. So again, unconsciously, I was kind of writing about this ant colony in a very similar fashion to as I grew up. It's just the longer, and then, like a few months ago, I found out, I remembered my dad worked for a printing company that printed golden books. The kids' books never hit me until like 4 months ago when I was having a conversation with somebody else. There's again, kismet. There's so many things in this path that have popped up that are reflections of where I had been in my life. And the more I write about it or talk to people like you about it, the more things that pop up that it's like, crap, I didn't realize, I didn't think about that. So the inspirations come from just experience, and then also stuff my grandkids do.
Well, what you speak of when you talk about how, you reflect upon where you got to, this comes up quite a bit in other interviews that I have, where people talk about finding inspiration for breaking out of your routines by going back and looking at the things that inspired you when you were young. And you can find things that interested you when you were younger that can inspire you again to maybe, take those things up. You put them away because you had to have a job, you had to have be a parent. And now you can find inspiration to bring meaning back into your life from the past.
Yeah. And my goal, my degree is in radio and TV. My goal was to do play-by-play for a living.
Mm.
I don't know if Jack Buck was my idol, the Cardinals broadcaster for zillions of years. He's in the Hall of Fame. He was my idol. And I wanted to travel, do play-by-play, et cetera, et cetera. That was my goal. And I love the creating of the theater of the mind, that type of thing, where I could tell a story back in the day and people could envision what I was broadcasting when they were home. I did play-by-play for 25 years. So I loved road games better than home games because people didn't know where I was, and I could tell them where I was or describe what was going on the floor. So I had that gene in my body at that point, and in a weird way, it's very parallel to what I'm doing now in writing the children's stories. But you have to trust me. For 60 years of my life, I had no inkling to write anything, nothing, until that day I saw my grandson stomping on anthills.
But did you have potentially a creative desire that you just hadn't found the outlet for?
Oh gosh, yes. I mean, when I the one, like, if there's a word that describes you in the dictionary, I would put creative, because I've always been creative. But I've had people tell me you were very creative in the way you sold, stuff like that. But to this extent, no. I mean, when I was in radio, I did parody commercials. I did stuff like that. But that was long. That was 35 years ago, 40 years ago. That part of my life had kind of ceased until I saw Theo smashing anthills in the backyard. So it's like that little seed was still in my belly, just sitting there ready to blossom. And then I saw that, and it just started creeping up more and more up my esophagus at that point. And then, I threw up all this kind of, and
that's just had to find an outlet.
I needed to find an outlet, and I had to be in the right part of my life to be able to do that, because if this was 10 years ago, I wouldn't be as good at it as I am now, because I didn't have grandkids.
So you talked about how you feel you ended up on this idea of an anthill because with a strong matriarchy
Yes.
With your mother. And the primary protagonist in your story is Prince Andrew.
Yes, sir.
Spelled Ant-Roo.
Mm-hmm.
And do you feel, although you have inspiration from your grandchildren, is Prince Andrew a reflection of yourself?
Oh,
perhaps?
God, yes. Oh, yeah. Yeah. And the second book I published was about coaching. And I coach at the high school. I coach junior high and high school and basketball. And the second story is about how you should teach people things the right way and the wrong way. And Prince Andrew does it the wrong way to start out with, and the Queen jumps him and tells him he's not going to do it anyway unless it could treat the players or the Flyers with respect. So there's one. But yeah, there's the one I wrote that hasn't been published yet. I was reading at a school here in town in the wintertime, and when I was leaving, I lost my coat. I couldn't find it for 15, 20 minutes. I honestly had no idea. It's like I lose my car in a parking lot at the grocery store all the time. It was very similar. I couldn't find my coat. I had people looking for it. So on the way, I did find it. On the way home, I'm thinking, what would happen if Prince Andrew lost his crown? So I wrote that story. So there's no doubt about it. I mean, it's things. Yeah. I mean, yeah. Simply put, yes.
Prince Andrew is you.
Yes, and Queen Antasia, Antasia, is the queen, and she's my mom. And I tell you, she's just the wisest person there. She keeps her composure no matter what's going on, and she solves all the problems of the colony. And no matter what any of the other aunts do, and they do things, that some have different personalities than others, she just knows how to handle the situation. She's not perfect. There's a story where she's not perfect, but And I have written a story about the king dying and how she handles that. And basically, kind of under the seams of that story is there's no really good way for a parent to handle the death of a father or a mother or anybody like that. But it's parallel to what happened to me when my father passed away.
Right.
That has yet to be published too. And that's when I kind of iffy. That's pretty dark.
Right. Yeah. And it goes back to this idea what they always say is write what you know.
Exactly.
Right? And hopefully you know yourself, but I guess through the process of writing, you are discovering more about yourself as well.
There's no doubt about it. It's like in a weird way, I thought about this today. It's not as cloudy in my brain as it used to be, if that makes sense. There's some clearer things in there going through this process. And Graham, I have learned a lot about me talking to you guys, the podcasters, because you ask me questions I have never thought about before that brings up some of the stuff is like, oh my God, there is a parallel between that and where I'm at right now.
Okay, so what, in your opinion, makes a truly great children's book?
It's fun. It's not the same thing over and over and over again. The illustrations are unique, and it hopefully will lead to conversation. And it's not only entertaining for the kid, but also for the adult. And why I say that is if the adult doesn't like the book, they're not going to buy more of your books, or they're not going to pick that book off the home bookshelf and read it to the kid. There's certain books that I don't like reading to my grandkids that sometimes they pick, but if I get to pick, I'm picking one I like to read. So I think it's important to have some things in your book for the adult to enjoy. And we try to throw some Easter eggs in our books that are unique to, we have a hula girl dancing on a dashboard in one of our books. That's, a kid's not going to know what that is, but the adults will know. And that's some of the fun parts we do. But in my mind, that's, and again, I don't even think that book necessarily has to have a message. It just is entertaining, and there's some really good stuff out there right now, but there's also some stuff that I can't believe people buy, but it is, again, that's my opinion.
What are your thoughts on the balance between entertaining young readers and educating them or imparting a message?
So, having done this for 4 years of visiting classrooms, first and foremost, the book needs to be entertaining because we need kids to read. We need them to enjoy reading. We need them to become literate because literacy is a huge problem in our country and our communities because it leads to everything bad. It leads to drug use, leads to crime, it leads to unemployment. The list goes on forever. So literacy is a key. So I think entertaining is first and foremost because if they like what they're reading, they're going to continue to reading. And then if there's a message, great. Again, I've written books where I started just to write a good story and the message kind of just fell out of it because most stories in your life end up in some fashion having a lesson at the end. That's what makes a story is there's a beginning, a middle, and the end. And usually in the my 7-year-old grandson will even ask, goes, Papa, what's the problem in your story at this time? He even knows that there's supposed to be a problem. So I think that naturally will happen, but first and foremost, you have to entertain and create content and illustrate. That's why I think graphic novels are so prevalent today, is that they're entertaining. And if they can get some, they may not be what you or I want to read, but they're getting kids to read. I mean, as long as kids are reading, I'm all for it.
Doesn't matter the content per se, as long as it's not necessarily harmful content.
Yeah,
as long
definitely.
as they're reading. Yeah.
I don't know. Yes, definitely. Because I've been to schools where the teacher will tell me, Ron, and we'll give them a book. That's the only book that kid will have at home. And I just seriously, or when he gets home, his grandfather or his guardian or his dad will throw the book away. It's just, I hear that stuff pretty consistently. So I try to, as much as I can when I'm in these schools, to encourage these kids to read, enjoy reading. And the interesting part about that, I'm getting off on a tangent again, but the older the kids get in schools, the less likely they are to enjoy reading. And I think my opinion is a lot of that has to do with what they're being asked to read in schools. Because as you got older and as I got older, we don't like being told what to do. And they're being asked to read things they're not interested in. Thus, they don't enjoy reading it. Thus, they equate that with not liking to read.
Okay, I just want to change the topic a little bit here, just about being an author and some of the process. So, what does a typical, day in the life look like for you?
It depends on the day from an author's perspective because I don't write unless I have an organic idea pop in my head. I've been writing a lot lately because I've come up with some ideas, but there's been a month or 2 months where I haven't come up with anything. I do not just sit down to write because I'm not good at that.
Hmm.
I have to have I have to have an organic idea. The only story I tried to write one time because somebody said I should write a story about the specific character was horrendous because I didn't have anything in my brain that this character would do, if that makes sense. So there's got to be some sort of organic theme in my head that I can develop over the course of a few days and think about and get on paper. A lot of my, like the last one I finished, I had the idea. I'll just tell the story. You mind if I tell the story? So
Sure.
the idea was the queen is asked to go to a convention of all the bugs in the neighborhood or all the bugs in the yard. The grasshoppers are there, the crickets are there, the beetle, emperor beetle calls a meeting, and the stink bugs are there. Okay. There's a problem in the yard, and the queen is invited. She gets there, and the beetle that's guarding the place, says the guard, the queen's right hand man says, we're here for the meeting. And she goes, and this is the queen. He goes, why'd you send the queen? How come the king's not here? So that's the first little message. So it's basically about women not being in a position of leadership subtly. She gets there, and I wanted her to solve the problem that everybody was arguing about. Okay. I didn't know what the problem was. So it had to be a problem that affected all the creatures of the yard. And it had to be a problem that occurs often in a yard, but not all. I could use cutting grass because the grass had been cut a lot. So I was just trying to go through stuff in my brain. And it took me a couple of weeks until I came up with the idea. Okay. They're applying that spray fertilizer to the yard for the first time because the bakers who own the yard want the lawn to be lush for their grandson to come and play because the grandson's the one who is stomping on all the anthills. Okay. So
Hmm.
so I explained that a little bit in the story. So all the ants are freaking out, and that's kind of the queen solves the problem. But I couldn't write the story or complete the story until I knew what that one little thing was. Adorable was the same way. I had that written in my head for months, but I couldn't write it until I had the name of the baby, and the baby's name is Adorable. And I knew when I thought that, perfect. It's the name of the book. It describes what she looks like, and they're going to call it Dora. Is what she's going to be called for short. But all my aunts' names begin with A, so it had to be an A name.
When you sit down to write, do you have, need to have a special layout for your space? Do you need to be like, do not interrupt me for the next while, or can you just be hyper focused?
I just sit 3 feet from here and write. I work from home. I have for 15 years, so I'm generally at home alone during the day. I do look at it as my job. I generally write between 8 and 5. I very rarely write on weekends or any time outside of that. So I, all the stuff I do, the creating, the meetings with, I do the podcast outside of normal work hours because that's when you're available too. But as far as I treat the writing and that journey of mine as a job. So I will sit down, I'm by myself, and I go.
Right.
I don't have music on. I never thought about I'm hyper focused or not, but I probably am. I hadn't really thought about it that way.
So you've gone through your life, you came upon what would be, I would think you call now your passion.
Oh yeah,
Do you look at these books and what you've created as potentially your legacy?
my wife says yes, because we have this discussion. So she goes, "You have a legacy. I don't." It's like, so we have this argument. Not the funny part of I'm just me. I'm still me. I write kids books. That doesn't make me more special than anybody else in the world. I have discovered that I have a gift. I never viewed it as a gift, this creativity I had until the last 6 months or so, that I have a talent that a lot of people don't have, that I'm able to picture these things in my brain, get them down on paper, then convert that into something other people can enjoy. And I also have this ability to take small little things that happen in life and convert them to my ant colony and tell stories. I talked to somebody yesterday, Ron, you're just a natural storyteller. And I never thought about that. But as far as, God, legacy is just a really hard word for me, because legacy with a lowercase L, maybe, but uppercase L. I mean, Martin Luther King had a legacy. People like that to me have legacies. Jack Buck left a legacy because he inspired me to get into broadcasting. But yes, when I pass, am I going to have something that might be around for 120 years that somebody may find in their basement shelf and pull it out and go, "Who's this guy?" Yeah. Do I equate that with a legacy necessarily? I don't know. Maybe 10 years from now, and there's other kids writing books that grew up and they're 20 that read my books when I read to them and they're in grade school, and they, I wanted to be an author because Mr. Kinscherf came and read Adorable to me. That would be really, really cool. Maybe at that point, but now maybe a lowercase L. I'll go with that.
Well, of course, there's scale of legacy, but you are leaving something behind. And I'm sure, I'm hoping that as a result of listening to this podcast, people will be inspired to, they don't necessarily have to become a children's author, but maybe take that plunge to write a book.
Or take that plunge to do something they enjoy. If they're in that humdrum part of their life where they feel like they're being beaten over the head constantly and need to find something to open their eyes to the world around them. And it could be gardening. It could be some other thing that they could share with everybody else around them. That's more the message I'd like people to get out of what my experience is yes, they could be an author, but they could also bake, something that they can share with people that will make them feel good inside. Make a batch of cookies and run it across the street and give it to the kids over there, and then walk away going, you know what, I bake cookies for these kids and they love them. I'll do that maybe once a month now. Just something that you enjoy, that gets you out of your routine, that, that waking up every morning and knowing you got to go to your desk and know you got a management meeting that day that you're going to completely not enjoy because they're going to ask you where you're at with your quota, which really doesn't mean anything because you can't make anybody buy anything anyway because of the economy, just that type of thing. Just find something you really, really love doing. And I have found that, and I'm happy as hell. And I'm happy that you're having me share that with other people, that maybe somebody else is in a job like this will say, you know what, Ron got out of it. Maybe I can get out of it too. And I'm not saying quit your job, but just find something on the side, a side hustle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think really at the end of the day, that's what this podcast is about, right? People finding those inspirations, if it's a side hustle, if they decide they want to change their career path, whatever.
Well, I'm glad I could get along here at the end after so long to get to the path you're after with this podcast.
Oh, just hearing people's stories is inspiration in itself, because they're like, well, Ron did it. Why can't I do it?
And if I can do it, I'm nothing special. I mean, if I could do it, somebody told me one time, you have a skill set that only you out of 10,000 people have. You just got to find what that is.
Now, we look at Ron Kinscherf, who grew up with 5 brothers and sisters, or was one of 5 brothers and sisters.
One of 6.
One of 6. Mm-hmm. Raised by a single mother, went into broadcasting, then went into IT consulting, is now an author. If young Ron could see the story of your life unfold and see where it's ended, what would he think of that journey?
I think first he would think it was why it took you so long. But then as I got there, I know why it took so long, because I had to go through everything I went through in order to be where I'm at. I think he'd be okay. I mean, I've got 2 great kids. I got 5 great grandkids. I provided. My wife did too, chipped in. We have never been, early on, finances were tight, but it's been a good life. I think a young Ron would be pretty damn happy where things ended up.
Even though he didn't become the play-by-play broadcaster he wanted to be?
No, but I got to do play-by-play for 25 years. I'm in the Illinois Hall of Fame for broadcasting play-by-play. So I got that gig, but I married the woman I love. We decided to stay in Quincy. We had kids early, and sometimes your dreams don't come true exactly. And up until the age of 59, they didn't. But now at 60, I'm doing this. I see a really distinct parallel between what I'm doing now with these books and what I wanted to do telling stories through play-by-play.
Right. And maybe it takes 59
God.
years to actually find your true dream.
It did for me, yeah. And it can for anybody else. And I hope people listening find that dream.
Yes. Well, and on that, I would like to really thank you again for coming on Humdrummedy, sharing your amazing story with us. And I wish you lots of luck with your upcoming book, Adorable, and all your other future publications.
Thank you. And I can mention one thing real quick, if you're okay with that, Graham. If they go to my website, which you were at, there's this menu item that says podcasts. If they click on that, there's a place where you can get free ebook. If they go there, you can download a free copy of Adorable, type in podcast. That's the code word. And you can get a copy of Adorable and also coloring pages you can download for your kids. Only people who listen to the podcast are able to get that. So hop on my site, check it. Yeah, hop on my site, check it out. And you can order books off that too and learn out more about me and who I am and all that fun stuff. But yeah, there's free ebooks available for anybody listening to this podcast.
Well, that's some terrific bonus material for the listeners.
It's my pleasure.
Finding our passion or purpose can take time, sometimes almost a lifetime. I hope you are as inspired as I am by Ron's story, and let's remember to keep our eyes open to every opportunity, as even the smallest observation can lead to big things. Please visit Ron's website, papatellmeabook.com, and use the password podcast to download some free content to share with the kids in your life. Okay, until next time, take care.